まあどっかにはそういう部分があってもいいんですけど、またそれが中毒になってねくれればいいなと。はい。辛かったり苦しかった部分もあるけど、またでもこういう思いをしてもいい作品作りたいよねっていう感じと参加できて楽しそうですね。
Virgin Punk? Clockwork Girl was one of the slickest movies I saw in 2025. But calling it a movie is a stretch. At just 35 minutes, it's no Nolan epic, nor even a Reze arc for that matter, which makes the online backlash following its North American theatrical debut far more understandable, even though Fathom is largely to blame. Runtime aside, Virgin Punk is a deliberate break from convention and a fascinating deep dive into the bowels of anime production. Directed by Yasuomi Umetsu, his first original work in over a decade, and produced with Shaft, Virgin Punk embodies art as animation. Set in the year 2099, the story focuses on bounty hunter Ubu Kamagori as she navigates a world rife with somadaya, special medical technology that replaces human limbs with advanced prosthetics. On the surface, it reads like a familiar cyberpunk action story, a la Ghost in the Shell, Kira, and Edge Runners. Look closer, and it's clear Virgin Punk is doing something else entirely. With nearly every scene a melting pot of detail, the sheer level of polish stands as truly inspirational. Rooted in that extreme polish is a quiet, almost unintentional message, one Umetsu himself may not even fully articulate. But before we get there, who exactly is Yasuomi Umetsu?
Yeah.
You can't tell the story of Virgin Punk without discussing its creator. After all, Yasuomi Umetsu is a legend in the anime world, though depending on who you ask, perhaps for all the wrong reasons. Known for his work in adult animation, Umetsu has always had a reputation as something of an outlier. But strip away that label and what remains is a mystical polish that's on par with some of the medium's most celebrated creators, including Hayao Miyazaki and Satoshi Kon. Notably, Umetsu's action scenes remain some of the most thrilling and memorable of the late 1990s and early 2000s, and his character designs are revered to this day. Case in point are his character designs for Castlevania 64, specifically Carrie, who conveys his very distinctive female art style. If you didn't already know his name, you might be surprised to learn Umetsu's had a remarkable legacy in animation. Over the years, Umetsu contributed to a wide range of productions, including Akira and Grave of the Fireflies, along with various TV projects. As I said, he's a legend and a total workhorse. Umetsu rose the ranks fairly quickly as a key animator in the 1980s, bouncing from Toei Animation to Sunrise and then Madhouse. He found his footing as an action sequence animator, which later became a pillar of his animation style. Umetsu's seminal anime debuted alongside 6 other projects in the 1987 Android-themed OVA Robot Carnival. His segment called Presence features an inventor obsessed with his own creation, a theme that feels eerily connected to Virgin Punk over 3 decades later. Umetsu's character designs, which were described as fleshy and erotic by industry peers, would pull him into the 1990s adult animation scene. It's here where he landed credits on the notorious Cool Devices series, considered a masterpiece of 1990s hentai, specifically as a director on Operation 7 called Yellow Star, which served as a thematic precursor to his most infamous project yet. Kite changed everything. The 50-minute 2-part OVA was considered especially controversial upon release, yet it earned Umetsu credibility for its cinematic framing, character designs, and action choreography. Kite didn't put Umetsu on the map per se, but it did put a spotlight on his capabilities within the anime industry, particularly his work ethic and skill. For reference, Umetsu was the director, writer, character designer, and key animator on Kite. He also served as the storyboard artist, which is a sign of auteur control, as it's fairly uncommon for series directors to handle the storyboards in anime production. Comparatively, lead director Shoto Goshizono personally storyboarded almost each entry of JJK Season 3, which is how every new episode looks so cinematic. In essence, Umetsu embodied an extreme hands-on approach to animation that would extend throughout his career. Kite's success in the OVA market cemented Umetsu's relationship with Studio Arms and led to the release of Mezzo Forte, which further emphasized his talent for stylish gunfights and striking female leads. At this stage, Umetsu's visual style was still taking shape. He leaned heavily on tension-building camera pans and long pauses in dialogue, techniques more commonly found in live-action film. His approach to staging gunfights in particular echoed the high-octane crime thrillers of John Woo, like The Killer, Hard Boiled, and A Better Tomorrow. The dawn of a new millennium marked a turning point in the anime industry. The OVA market imploded. What once was a thriving space for experimental and high-budget animation quickly became a shell of its former self. Many cited the economic collapse following Japan's bubble era as the main culprit. Rising piracy, declining home video sales, and the shift toward TV-driven IP all contributed to the death of OVA. In a bid for survival, Studio Arms shifted its focus to TV, while still keeping that violent and erotic flair Umetsu were best known for. This allowed Umetsu to work on more conventional anime productions without the raunchy extras, giving way to Mezzo DSA, a direct sequel to Mezzo Forte. But as the industry pivoted, so too did Umetsu. By the mid-2000s, he had already kicked off a fruitful career in OP and ED animation. These included The Count of Monte Cristo, High School Girls, Welcome to the NHK, Ergo Proxy, Kemonozume, and plenty more. Umetsu's OPs and EDs are ranked among the best in the industry, with Kisnaver a true standout of his later work. In 2009, Umetsu was tapped by then chief creative director of Studio Shaft, Akiyuki Shinbo, to design the Sora Mechi OP. It proved to be a foundational collaboration, one that quietly set the stage for everything that followed. On the day it aired, Umetsu wrote in his blog, "This was my first time working with Shaft, but the staff on set were excellent. As expected of an elite team that has overcome countless challenges in previous works, they were very powerful." Before things could take off at Shaft, Umetsu was faced with two setbacks: Galilei to Donna and Wizard Barristers. The two original works received mixed reception due to their rushed production, an aspect of the business Umetsu largely avoided in the OVA era. The animation quality on both projects is often praised, but narrative elements and tonal confusion reign as critical issues. The pattern was clear. Umetsu's meticulous work ethic wasn't suited to the pace of conventional TV production. His strongest work emerged only when he held tight control over both the animation and storyboards. Many industry peers still regard Umetsu as one of anime's best storyboard artists, thanks to his years-long and very effective approach to filmmaking. It's why he gravitated to anime OPs and EDs in the 2010s, as the format imposed far fewer restrictions on his style. In a New Type interview dated February 10th, 2025, Umetsu admits that he had run out of steam after the release of Galilei Donna and Wizard Barristers, which many attributed to his absence as a director for the next 11 years. Behind the scenes, Umetsu and Shaft were already developing a new IP, one that was quietly gestating as the studio reached the height of a cultural reorganization, evolving into the perfect environment for Umetsu's visual sensibilities. And it's all thanks to Akiyuki Shinbo. The same way you can't tell the story of Virgin Punk without discussing its creator, you also can't ignore Shaft's involvement in the unique production environment that allowed Clockwork Girl to truly shine. To examine this properly, we'll have to roll the clock back to 2004, when newly minted Shaft president Mitsutoshi Kabuto began a rigorous reshuffling of the studio. Kabuto's strategy was twofold. First came the formation of a digital effects division tasked with supporting a more experimental visual framework that prioritized cinematic composition and style. Next, Kabuto hired Akiyuki Shinbo to serve as the studio's primary directorial figurehead, following his work on Les Portraits de Petite Cosette and Soul Taker. Shinbo recruited a variety of talent to Shaft, and as soon as he assumed the role of chief director, allowed newer staff members to handle granular aspects of series episodes. This not only allowed Shinbo to act as a mentor, but also cultivated a cohesive Shaft style. By 2005, a core Team Shinbo culture had emerged, with unique leadership that emphasized a visual-first approach over script-driven workflows that were common at the time. You see, Most anime productions pipelines begin with series composition, which leads into a finalized episode script. Directors then plan out shots and camera angles in the storyboard before handing things off to layout and animation. Under Akiyuki Shinbo at Shaft, this process looked a bit different. Productions still began with a script, but a larger emphasis was taken on the storyboards, allowing the imagery to drive the pacing and structure. From there, layout and animation take shape with dialogue and script adjustments made afterward to better match the visuals. In this way, Shaft animators could freely develop their own creative ideas around the narrative itself. The script was no longer an immutable Bible like it was at other studios. It functioned more like a skeleton with a preserved thematic core, allowing Shaft to experiment in subtle yet intriguing ways. Shinbo's leadership enabled iconic elements to emerge in his projects, from the emotionally expressive Shaft tilts to the use of experimental typography, real-world photos, and abstract backgrounds. This distinct Shaft style was fully realized with Bakemonogatari and Puella Magica, both praised for their experimental visual chic. By this time, Shaft had become a household name, cementing its relationship with Sony-owned Aniplex. Kubota's original strategy worked more than he could have imagined, yet Shaft's growing attention led to high demand, requiring strict compartmentalization to manage its increasing workflow. By the middle of the 2010s, the Team Shinbo culture that had defined Shaft throughout the aughts was gradually replaced by silos of director-led studios. Shinbo still held the title of chief director, but was less involved on day-to-day projects. Instead, he functioned more as a creative overseer, with directors Tomoyuki Itamura, Yukihiro Miyamoto, and Tatsuya Oishi leading individual productions. Enter Yasuomi Umetsu. Fresh off Galilei, Donna, and Wizard Barristers, the veteran animator was feeling creatively drained. Despite the creative uncertainty, Umetsu still had a few original ideas up his sleeve. He just needed the right studio to realize them. While he theoretically could adapt his concepts at ARMS, the studio was already teetering on the brink of collapse. ARMS officially changed its name to Common Sense Company in 2017, and just 3 years later filed for bankruptcy. Drawing on his fond memories of working with Shaft on And Yet the Town Moves, and appreciating the studio's digital animation teams, Umetsu approached Mitsutoshi Kubota with 3 story concepts at the tail end of 2014. Kubota selected only one of them, then titled Vespa, specifying in later interviews its stylistic closeness to Umetsu's early work. Kubota presented the proposal to then Aniplex CEO Atsuhiro Iwakami, who swiftly greenlit the project. Umetsu writes in his blog dated October 20th, 2014, "My next directorial project is currently in the planning stages. It will probably take a while, but please look forward to it." A while it most certainly took. Before work could formally begin on Vespa, Umetsu was tasked with directing the opening for Gourmet Girl Graffiti. This trial collaboration proved serendipitous in 2 key ways. It allowed Umetsu to meet Ryusuke Suzuki, later the lead producer on Vespa, and more easily integrate in Shaft's production pipeline. Under Shinbo's guise, Shaft had morphed into the perfect incubator for Umetsu's style. While it was more compartmentalized by 2015, the studio continued to embrace Shinbo's culture of visual experimentation, making it one of the best places for Umetsu to realize his vision. Not long after the release of Gourmet Girl Graffiti, Shaft transitioned from a Yugen Gaisha limited company to a Kabushiki Kaisha stock company. Initially, the corporate shift felt like a positive step for the studio. Over time, it began to incite internal tensions as the creative-first culture increasingly clashed with production pressures. In response, or defiance, many of Shaft's most talented animators exited the studio between 2016 and 2017. Among those who left were director Tomoyuki Itamura, color designer Izumi Takizawa, and a large portion of director Yuki Yase's team, many of whom later contributed to Fire Force at David Production. Fortunately, these departures had little effect on Vespa, though they did directly impact Shaft's production volume. The studio was already stretched thin across multiple projects, including Fireworks, Zeragoto, March Comes In Like a Lion, the final season of Monogatari, and the Kzumonogatari film trilogy, which infamously siphoned off a large portion of resources. Even with the studio stretched to the brink, pre-production on Vespa had already begun by 2015. And the first draft of the script was finished the following year. The story was penned by Yuya Takahashi, a veteran anime scriptwriter best known for his work on Lupin III. Takahashi not only wrote the script, but also coined both the series' name and its episodic title, marking several firsts for Umetsu, who previously penned and titled his own projects. With that, Virgin Punk Clockwork Girl was born, setting the stage for Umetsu and Shaft to fully realize their shared vision. Their only obstacle? Time. Anime productions take time, usually a lot of it. A standard 12-episode TV series such as Bakemonogatari and March Comes In Like a Lion often takes around 1 to 2 years from planning to completion, with studios like Shaft typically working on tight, overlapping schedules. Films can take even longer, sometimes stretching to 3 years or more, as seen with Makoto Shinkai's Your Name. Virgin Punk is the exception. Production began as early as 2015. Full animation production didn't ramp up until 2018. This means nearly 3 years were spent in planning, known in Japanese productions as kikaku, which involves dialogue adjustments, scenario polishing, structural iteration, and early storyboarding. Meanwhile, the world of Virgin Punk was already taking shape, evidenced by a 2016 research trip to Lisbon, Portugal, where several Shaft animators gathered visual references for the story's setting. This extended timeline is largely thanks to Kiboto and Iwakami, who insisted that Umetsu direct the film on his own terms. Plus, Shaft had already rolled back its seasonal output, allowing creator-led projects like Virgin Punk to bypass the intense scheduling pressures typical of television anime. The unique environment ensured Umetsu could freely tap various Shaft animators on a cut-by-cut basis. By 2018, Virgin Punk existed almost entirely on paper. Its story, characters, and world were largely locked in. What remained was the hardest part, bringing it all to life. For Yasuomi Umetsu, that process is anything but conventional. Unlike most productions where the storyboards are finalized before animation begins, Umetsu continues refining them deep into the process, adjusting cuts, redrawing sequences, and reworking motion as new ideas emerge. It's a fluid, obsessive approach, one that prioritizes precision over efficiency. That's Umetsu's style, after all. This level of control comes at a cost. Action scenes, one of Umetsu's trademarks, are especially demanding, requiring dense key animation, constant corrections, and meticulous timing. Even the smallest movements are scrutinized. Producer Ryusuke Suzuki puts it succinctly in BTS footage.
やっぱり結構その作画って複雑なんですよね、実は。パッと見絵ではあるんですけど、実は結構細かいところまで見ていくとすごく複雑で。
The numbers tell the full story. Despite its 35-minute runtime, Virgin Punk required over 30,000 finished drawings. And when accounting for rough sketches and revisions, that number likely exceeds 100,000, according to Suzuki. To put that in perspective, a full 12-episode anime season might total around 50,000 or so drawings. Virgin Punk reaches more than half of that in barely over half an hour. Those drawings weren't just numerous, but also dense. Every frame is packed with detail, from subtle character motion to layered environmental effects. At 24 frames per second, that level of density means many shots are packed with far more unique drawings than the industry's average. As Kishimoto notes,
作画の方のディテールがすごく細かいんで、なんか密度があるからすごく多いように見える、情報量が多い感じに見えるのかなって思いました。
Editing Ebbs here, chiming in to add that Costa Rican animator named Danielle Padilla said that 1 second on Virgin Punk took over a month to complete. This attention to detail extended far beyond animation. Compositing director Takayuki Aizu, for example, developed special techniques to simulate realistic water refraction, capturing how light bends and distorts through motion. Even Umetsu himself was impressed with the result. Sound design received the same level of scrutiny. In BTS footage, Umetsu is shown fine-tuning everything from bullet impacts to shell casings hitting the ground. At one point, he even asks to up the severing effect in a particularly brutal scene. Subtle? Not quite. This level of precision extended across the entire team, which was later coined the Shaft Umegumi production label. The team even got a nod in Pretty Boy Detective Club for their work on the OP alongside Umetsu. This was one of the very few indications at the time that Umetsu was working on a project with Shaft. And yet, for many more years, almost no one knew Virgin Punk existed. It remained in secrecy up until 2024, when a short teaser was unveiled at Aniplex Online Fest. By then, nearly a decade had passed since its earliest stages of development. From initial planning to theatrical debut, the project took close to 7 years to complete. Even then, its release was limited, screening in select theaters and short-run events rather than a wide rollout, which makes the final result all the more remarkable. Because Virgin Punk isn't just a film. It's the product of years of iteration, revision, and relentless attention to detail. Put more simply, Virgin Punk is what happens when you give a perfectionist time. It embodies the commitment in every creator, the necessity to finish the project no matter how long it takes, no matter the obstacles. All of this effort, years worth of dedicated animation work, not to mention the cosmic chance of Umetsu landing at Shaft at the perfect moment, culminated in one of the most detail-rich projects I've ever seen. One that may well be the start to one of the most exciting new properties yet. Just another 10 years to go for the sequel. I know. This was a bit of a long one, so I do apologize. It took me a long time to put all this together, but following in Umetsu's footsteps, I wanted to finish this video no matter how long it took. No matter how long was necessary before I knew it was truly finished. The other thing with Virgin Punk is the drama surrounding its US theatrical release. While Fathom does list the film as including BTS footage in its description, I think more people were still going into it expecting a full-length movie, a full-length film, as advertised by the listed runtime of, I want to say, what, an hour 40 or something like that? If you haven't seen it already, definitely give it a watch. You know, it's available on DVD, of course. You know, Virgin Punk released on DVD, I think the 25th of March, I believe. And Aniplex had it up on YouTube for a while, so I'm sure you can find it somewhere. In many ways, Virgin Punk reminds me of Kankerol. Hey, raise your hand if you've seen Kankerol here. Yeah, just two people. They're both creator-led projects, and, you know, they both kick off their own series that are seemingly decades in the making. Any Kankerol fan will tell you the wait is a long one. The big difference here is that Kankerol is on its third project, I believe, right? Its third project was recently greenlit. And Clockwork Girl just got its pilot. So, yeah. Like most Umetsu films, Virgin Punk doesn't have the most groundbreaking narrative. Aside from its vibrant and stunning world, there's nothing that makes it inherently stand out from other cyberpunk stories. In fact, it mirrors Ghost in the Shell quite a bit, given the underlying premise of swapping consciousness between bodies, Somadaya versus shells. Despite that, I'm still thoroughly intrigued. Umetsu's uniquely distinct characters make Virgin Punk a spellbinding watch. The main antagonist, Mr. Elegance, tops the list of fictional creeps in his repertoire, and Ubu is yet another compelling female lead, an Umetsu staple that seems to improve with each new project. We also know next to nothing about this specific character, which I'm led to believe is the once titular Vespa. I'm really excited to see the implications behind the character and what the future holds for Ubu. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to further dissect the story and characters, because, you know, any excuse to talk more Virgin Punk is always welcome. Sometimes the story isn't the main selling point. The intricate, refined, and visually distinct worlds of some stories pull us in even more than the narrative itself. That's Virgin Punk Clockwork Girl. It serves as a powerful counterpoint against the claim that animation isn't art. However long the wait for the next installment may be, it's hard not to feel it'll be worth it. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully not when Virgin Punk 2 comes out. Until then, don't drown out there. See ya.